Okay, I'm here with Wolfgang Cerny. It is an honor to meet you because I saw the Whirlpool a couple months ago, and you were phenomenal in that movie, hands down.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, it was a very intense shooting period. Let's put it that way. It was really tough, but I'm happy. Kind of like the result reflects all the sweat and tears we shared back then. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So my first question for you is, what inspired you to get into acting? Who are your inspirations?
Basically it started when I was quite young, when I was like 7 years old. I mean, I do come from an academic background, so my whole family, they're either doctors or mainly doctors actually. And so I didn't have any clue about acting whatsoever. I was quite naive, which probably was the only reason why I survived that long. And I really played in some school plays, like small parts, like one, two lines, whatever, but I really like enjoyed it, cherished it a lot. And then when I went to sports gymnasium, because I come from a very sportive doctor's family, so sport was kind of my entry ticket into acting, let's put it. So I was an athlete before I became an actor. And then I also started to study medicine because it was kind of like the usual path for my family. I was quite good at it. But deep within, I still had that dream. And then I was like 18-ish, already studying in university, first year of medicine. And then I saw Pirates of the Caribbean and with Johnny Depp, and I really came out shaky. I was just I watched this movie 3 times because I felt like, damn, I have to find out whether it's even possible for me to do something like that. And all these childhood dreams came back up. But of course, people told me like, come on, acting is not a job. You cannot do that. It's nothing serious, nothing to earn money with. There's no serious money there. And but I was kind of already developed enough to at least tell my father, who worried, of course, that's where all these like arguments came from. I told him, you know what, it's unlikely, but it is possible that I can earn like 1,000 times as much as you do. And that kind of shut him up, which was good. And then he said, okay, I'll give it a try. He didn't believe in my talent, to be honest. And then I applied first secretly and then openly to some drama schools, and still while still studying medicine. And the system is similar, but still a bit different from the States. Because I also went to the Juilliard, like I went to around 3 or so, whatever, but when I was younger. Plus, I started with the American Academy in LA, and for 2 summers, and then I kind of went back to good old Europe to finish my education there. And so I applied for 2 or 3 different schools, like fully unprepared. I didn't have any real education before. I just learned some monologues and felt, okay, I'm gonna just do it and they will take me. They did not, even though I came far. Usually, I also went to London to some places. And then my father told me, you know what? If you don't get into the next school, you'll stay with medicine, and become a dog plastic surgeon or whatever. And so we shook hands. And I said, okay, but in return, if I get in, then you will like support me at least financially until the end of my studies, which is not that much in Austria, to be honest, but still. And also emotionally, that meaning that not on every occasion you will tell me, come on, you should stay with medicine. He said, okay, we shook hands. And for him, it was like, fine, the boy will be okay because he has no talent in the first place. So he will become a good doctor and that's it. But to his shock and to my happiness, whatever, I was accepted at that school, which is one of the two best schools in Austria. And I was, yeah, so that's where I studied like 4 years. It's a university. We have a proper a Bachelor of Arts, so all kind of like according to my family's plans. And then yeah, so basically in the beginnings, I felt more like an outsider, an alien in there, to be honest, because everyone else was already into theater for, I don't know, 10, 15 years, really. Some of them, they were in kids theater and youth theater and like theater, sports, improvisation classes and stuff. And I was just a sportsman. I was a skiing instructor. I don't know, climbing, going scuba diving, surfing. I did all kinds of ball sports. So volleyball, beach. I love beach volleyball, for example. So it was all just like martial arts for 17 years. So, and then I felt like, okay, what am I doing here? I felt a bit too big. I felt a bit too bulky yeah, in every sense I felt I'm taking up too much space on stage. because everyone else was super skinny, and all these like very dramatic and I don't know, skinny creatures who call
Yeah.
themselves actors. I mean, good actors, no word, but I didn't fit into that team, so I really ended up making small steps on stage just because I felt like I'm too big. I mean, whatever I'm doing is just too much. And it took me quite a while to figure out that that's actually a plus. Some I like I say I like to use my physiology. I like to use my body, and I like to use everything I have in order to like incorporate it into the character and to paint that character with all I have. Because in the end, that's our instrument. So and that's what I also tried in Whirlpool because I
Yeah.
lost some weight for that. I skinned down a little bit. Because that I mean, Danil, he lives in the forest, so he is not like fully bulked up. But
Yeah.
it wouldn't make
And
sense.
what I liked about your role in the Whirlpool is, usually when you see these type of films, like the shaman or the cult leader is going to have this romantic interest in the lead female, but that wasn't the case for you. I was telling Den and Olga when I interviewed them last month. I told them like, you acted Daniel was more like a big brother or a father figure to
Mhm.
Luba, and that's what I really liked. I like that it took something different, or instead of being the same old riff now and again. But like I said, you like really brought your A game to that role.
Mm.
So that was real like really liked about the film because you got to play something different in terms of the norm from what I think I actually remember you from Mission Impossible at one point. I think I remember seeing you like
Oh,
I do remember that because I was like, wait a minute. I was like, he was in one of the Mission Impossible movies. What was that like? I would love to hear your
that
experience on
was
that.
that was crazy. Actually, it was like one of the biggest sets I've ever been to. Of course, I was a bit younger, and it was just also. I mean, they had like 700-800 people on set. It was Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, and it was. I mean, it was a small part, but it was fun because it was just like being. It was the Olympic thought, just participating is already a win, and it was very interesting to just observe what they all were doing and how they were acting, how Tom Cruise was working. Just I really like. I mean, well, my colleagues who also had like smaller parts, were just sitting and waiting for their turn. I really stole away from our waiting area and just sat there or stood there somewhere in the background where I wouldn't disturb anyone and just watched because it was like for me it was like an exercise or like a lecture because I could really stand there and see how they worked. And he is a professional. I mean, you can say whatever you want about Tom Cruise. You can see he's like a I don't know. I mean, of course, private stuff, Scientology, that's something totally different. But
Right.
he is a professional. He's how to say? He really hits the mark. He knows how. He's um, very pragmatic how he works, and I think that's the only way to deal with such big sets because you're very like to the point. You make very clear statements. I mean, it feels a bit like he was a soldier. I mean, he played like a soldier-like character, but also like when he was not in character, he was also like very straightforward to the point. He made like very short sentences to everyone. I felt like he's just giving orders nonstop. So I was a bit like, that is also a way, of course, to act and behave on such a big set. But for me, it was an eye opener because I mean, I played on some sets before, but not that big, and
Right.
it helped me a lot in order to put that much weight of responsibility on my shoulders when I played leads in features and in productions. And I like it, to be honest, because it's very. I like to be in control of things and have feeling that okay, if I do a little bit more than is what expected of me, I mean, we can go much further with the whole project. So that's why I tried to do the same with Whirlpool, actually, to really try to get it because I like the script, I like the people very much, and I saw the potential. I felt like, guys, okay, we can do it like this, but let's try to do this and this. So I was also incorporating my shamanic practices I've been doing for more than 15 years. Just some parts of the whole thing with the smudging was my idea, and the whole thing with the some of the dances. I rewrote the whole these poem we were using. So all this stuff I was really trying to get as much of me into the role as possible because I really believed in the project.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Den and Olga, especially Dennis, he lets you do that, and I like I
Mm.
like it when the director collaborates with the actor, not just ordering them around. Like you got to do it this way. It brings
Exactly.
more of a natural performance for the actor if they collaborate, like you
Right.
mentioned. Here's an idea I have for this character. What and then I think that's what really works in these type of movies.
Yeah, it was a collaboration. It was fully like it was a give and take, and it was ping pong like it was really playing along, and he was always there, and Olya was always there, so they were always like watching, and they always had an open eye and ear for what we were doing or what I was doing, and it really helped because I sometimes had a short crazy idea, and I could like just like check with them, is this worth trying, or should we just like not risk that right now? And then most in some cases, for example, one of the most intimidating and magical moments of the whole shoot was, and I forgot about it. They told me it a couple of days prior, but I was so into preparation and shooting that I didn't think about it at that moment. Because at some point during noon, they just stopped and said, "Okay, sorry, now we're going to shoot this one scene where Wolf is just like hitting the drum inside these huge Stonehenge like circle they created in the woods amazingly. The energy was amazing, and I was just like, okay, whatever. We stopped whatever we were doing, a big scene, moved there, the whole set, and I was just really standing there. They built the whole crane, and they were doing this top shot of me just drumming. And it was 10 minutes, and I felt like it's so strange. It felt so intense, but no one said stop, so I was just improvising as I usually do. And after 10, 15 minutes, they just stopped. Everyone just looking at me like first they laughed because it was one of the first days, and the team didn't really. I mean, if a half naked guy runs around the forest beating a drum, it can be very funny actually in the first time you see that. And then but when I, it was very strange energy. And then later that evening, they said, "How was it? How did you like it?" And I was like, "I don't know. It was really strange. It was the summer solstice. It was a, it was exactly the 21st of June. So the longest day, the shortest night. Plus, there was also um, what was it? A special constellation with the moon and the sun. It was not like a full, how do you call it when the moon is in front of the sun? I always forget that in
The
English.
eclipse, the eclipse.
Eclipse, exactly. It was kind of an eclipse at that moment, but a partial eclipse, it would not really affect the whole lighting, but it was a special energy wise, whatever. And they told me in advance, and I forgot. And then I was just like, really exactly at that moment, it was a window of like 15 minutes, and we used that window for these things, these actions I did in the circle. And it was really like, and I'm very happy because some of that really translates into the final version. Because sometimes when you're on set and you feel really well and you feel everything is amazing and you're comfortable, it's up to a point where it's getting when I have a feeling that it's too nice. The result can only be boring because there is no tension and everyone is happy, everyone's best friends, and feel like everyone wants to hug each other and kiss each other all the time. It's like, yeah, it's nice, but it's not that productive. So
Yeah.
there were moments when I was a bit like um, worried it might turn to that, but thank God it didn't. So they're really very, very, first of all, nice souls and amazing people, but they're also experienced filmmakers who understood tension. So that was, I'm
Oh
very
yeah.
happy because I mean, it's a kind of like a soft horror movie in the end. So
It is. Yeah,
it's,
that's what it
yeah,
was. It was like a full horror movie, and then what also was, I know Dennis and Olga are definitely, they know about tension because their last film was actually an action thriller, Russian Rain,
exactly,
which
exactly.
I absolutely loved. And
Yeah, me
and
too.
I think what really surprised me was the fact that they told me that the actress who played Luba, this was her very first film.
Yeah.
So that was even more shocking because she pulled off such an amazing debut performance. Did she go to you for any advice in terms of like her role as well during the production?
Yeah, she did. And it was, I mean, her English was quite good to be honest. So we talked a lot. And but since I liked it very much because I was on board quite early during the casting process. And then we had a couple of like, no, actually many different Lubas because half of Russia. I mean, this is all pre-wars, just so we understand each other when everyone was still okay in Russia. And we had like half of Moscow casting for that role because it was a really very interesting, very nuanced role. So there was really much potential for any actress to play. And then they confirmed one actress, I forgot her name even, who was very strong, amazingly like super hot at that moment. Everyone wanted her, and she wanted that role. But when we had a break, blah, 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 she also looked at me like I said, "Do you understand the script?" And I would look at her like, yeah, I do. But the scene for the audition was a very was the scene right after the right before the rape, the almost rape scene,
Yeah.
where she believes she killed someone, and it's very intense, and blah blah. When I like hug her and tell her, "Okay, it's okay, don't worry, you'll be fine. You're an amazing woman," blah blah blah. So of course, I mean, it even says in the script in the casting lines, okay, he hugs her, he touches her, and this other girl was so into that that I couldn't even touch her because she was so like, "Don't touch me, no, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off." And I'm like, "Okay, I understand, I will not touch you, but it's in the script. I mean, there's something I need to reproach you at
Right.
least somehow." So, and then in the end, Alyona, she was very young, very inexperienced, but very talented. And what I liked about her, she had the grit and she wanted to do that. And so there were many similarities of her in real life and what she played in the script. Nothing about the whole
Not
how
the
to
whole
say
abusive
like
thing, obviously. Not the whole,
abuse
not the whole
stuff,
abusive
exactly
stuff.
this and
Yeah.
that, exactly. This was the thing. I mean, at least what I know from her, that there was no issue with of violence at home, but she was young, she was, and she gave everything. She really jumped into the role head first. She was bit everywhere with mosquitoes, and she had quite intense emotional scenes, like almost nonstop. So we talked about that a little. She did most of it herself, to be honest, but we I gave her some advice about just some technical stuff about how to preserve emotions, how to go from A to B, and how to move around on set, because it's still like a professional workspace, even though it looks a bit strange because everyone is dressed in some green stuff and you're hiding between the forests so no one is seen. It's still like there's still all your colleagues in there. So, but I agree, she did. I'm very happy she was the best cast possible because she was also willing to go the extra mile, which was really important for that part. I mean, she also needed to jump through a fire. I mean, that was not staged. It was really just there was really big, huge fire. We jumped through it basically. So that was. And the funny thing is, afterwards, even like two or three other actors wanted to try it just because they felt like this is not my initiation right now. So it was fun. Yeah.
Well, I'm seriously hope we get to see more of her in films because if she pulled off this performance, I'm pretty sure she's going to have a career ahead of her.
I hope so. I know that it was quite quiet around her afterwards, but she did some theater stuff. But the issue was there. I mean, the whole war situation affects, of course, everyone's career a lot. So
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what she is doing right now, but she managed to get some one quite big role. So no, she's doing fine. I mean, she's not like
Yeah.
the rising star right now. Maybe that will happen, but she's still young. She still has
Yeah.
time, so
And
it's fine. Yeah.
I know Den and Olga, they're playing a new action film at the moment. They were telling me that. And then I know Den mentioned he might want to do a Russian Raid 2 down the line. So I hope that comes out.
Nice.
I'm all
Mhm.
for that. But
Yeah, he's.
you mentioned you've done martial arts for a number of years now. Of course, martial arts is one of my favorite genres of movies. I love watching a good
mm.
martial arts flick. What's actually your background? What style did you study and how long?
I started with traditional boxing for like 4 or 5 years. And then since I'm quite tall, have long legs, I wanted to include my legs somehow. And the son of my boxing teacher in Vienna, he recommended me Penchak Sealant,
Oh
which
yeah.
is, many people
The
don't.
Raid,
So
yeah.
yeah, so
Oh, yeah. The movie all I ever asked me is The Raid, and everyone knows it's Salat and Jack Salat. It's like, all right, the Raid.
exactly, I loved it. And then I basically did that for 5 years almost. Yeah. And then I moved to Munich for a big TV series I did there once I finished my studies. I graduated from drama school and then I got immediately cast for a huge TV series in Germany in Munich. So I moved there and they didn't have any still there, unfortunately. So I was looking around for some sort of like alternative. And then I found Wing Chun Kung Fu, which was nice, but I was not too, how to say, aligned with the teacher. I mean, every martial arts, as you would know, depends almost 100% on the instructor and the teacher. If
Yeah,
he or she is good, then it doesn't matter what they teach, you will learn something. If he or she is bad, I mean, my best examples we went like that was actually during SEALET. We went to some international convention, whatever, from different countries. They all came, different clubs, and every master gave kind of a workshop for the students of another master. So I also was like going around to different masters, blah blah blah. And there was one master, and I will never forget that. You know, in Silat they use these short sticks, the wooden sticks,
Yeah.
the rattan, and they're like it's you can kill someone with it. It's crazy. They're really super dangerous. So we use them for many different exercises and like and movements. And this so-called master, basically his class, which lasted an hour for us, consisted basically of one exercise: how one person with a stick, armed, defeats himself against an attacker who is unarmed. So you have to like think about that one more time. I do have a big stick. I'm super dangerous with this stick because I can kill you just like hitting you. And someone attacks me without a stick, with a fist, stupid enough, whatever. And then we had different like ways of like counterbalancing his fist and whatever. And I just asked, sorry, why don't I just hit him on the head with my stick since he's attacking me? And then he just looked at me like, that's not the point of the exercise. I understand. I didn't. So basically, it really like stands and falls with the instructor. And then, so I didn't stay there very long kung fu. And then I found my second favorite martial art, and that's Pikiti Kali and Eskrima. So that is Indian, that is Filipino, and that is, I mean, that really helped me a lot. I did it in Munich for like also 3 years almost, and that was very effective. So we had many of my colleagues there were bouncers, professional bouncers, you know, like guys who send the nightclubs that you can't come in, you can,
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
I don't care. Yeah. So I don't care if you threaten me or whatever. I mean, you'll be on the floor in 3, 2, 1. And they were on the floor. But the main thing about them is really about to control your opponent's body without actually destroying him or hurting him. So, and that is actually because they get issues with the police the moment there's if there's any like damage to property or to the actual body.
Yeah.
So, and for me, that's as an actor, that's just like a treasure chest because um, what's better in order to present violence on screen, which can be emotional and big and blah blah things flying around, than actually controlling your opponent's body, hitting him
Right.
somewhere on the wall and say, "You stay here, you motherfucker!" Blah, and you put him there, and he stays because you know how to control him without hurting him. So that was, and we had knives, we had like short swords, we had much with fists, kicks, everything was, but everything very controlled and very practice orientated, which I liked very much. So for me
Yeah.
that was amazing. Yeah. So that's basically, and then I since then I've been doing on off a little bit of boxing, a lot of CrossFit, and hit the gym and trying to stay fit, whatever, and whatever the. And 2 years ago, I did another Russian movie that was called Legends of Sambo. It just came out like shit, I think in fall, where I played one of the. Russia has its own martial arts called Sambo.
Samba.
It's
Yeah,
not a
Samba.
dance, Sambo. Yeah, you know, perfect. Yeah. So there is the way it has a very interesting history because it was basically invented by two guys who, after World War I, when everyone was kind of like aware that there might be another big war coming, because everyone was already preparing even before it started. So, and the Russians or the Soviets back then realized, okay, fuck, everyone has kind of like a how to say a weaponless combat training. I mean, Far East they had like their jiu-jitsu, their kung fu, and all this stuff. The Germans had this ringing. The Brits had boxing. The Russians had nothing. So they were like, okay, what should we do? And then there was two guys. One was an officer of the Red Army from the World War I who fought against the Japanese and was injured because of their jiu-jitsu they had. And then there was another orphan, Russian orphan, who grew up in a Russian monastery in Japan. Very super unlikely story. And he learned about jiu-jitsu back there, but he was Russian. Then he basically came back to Russia when he was like, I don't know, grown up and started to teach what he learned. And those two basically came together and created this new way of fighting for the Russians, which is quite popular right now in Russia.
Yeah.
And so then, and they basically was right. They used it right for the Russian army and everything, blah blah. So that's how, and that's like 85 years. And we shot that movie, and I played actually the guy who grew up in the orphanage.
Oh
So it was
wow.
actually quite interesting. They glued me like a bald head because I couldn't shave fully because I had three other projects parallel to that,
Yeah.
and it was crazy. And I played like this guy. I mean, they dubbed me in Russian because my Russian is good, but it's not flawless, and there's an accent. This guy should be flawless, of course. So, but in the end, it was I was also like a creative producer at this project, so it was really for me a big experience, and we had many fighting sequences with everything ourselves, and I trained with real sambaists, like how the guys call themselves, and it was quite intense and interesting. So now I have kind of this base of martial arts knowledge, plus also other skill like sword fighting, horseback riding, and I'm trying to use everything whenever it's necessary. So
Yeah, so, I
that's
mean,
what I love about the job.
I gotta say this with your skills in Salat. I think you need to team up with Uko Uwais, who's like the big Salat guy, and he's from Indonesia, but he's making movies in the U.S. now, and
Okay,
he basically brought Salat. He did a movie called Marantau, and then after that he did The Raid, which was like a massive international hit, and now he's now doing a movie called War. He's in the middle of the movie shooting a movie called Warpath, which is the next Skyline movie with Scott Adkins.
nice.
And now hearing that you're a Salat, it's like, you know what? You need to do a movie with Iko Uwais to show to
Oh,
both
that's
you show.
nice. Send me his name, please, later via email. I'd like to. I'll Google him. Maybe I can hit him up. We'll see what
Yeah,
happens. I'd love to. I'd love to. If there's other talented, like motivated people who have a good story, I'm in. So this is. I love to work with such people when it's really
yeah.
like, yeah.
Because for a while, yeah, 'cause for a while the martial arts genre kind of like died down in the U.S. Then all of a sudden John Wick comes out, and now and in the Raid, international movies are coming out, and now it's like resurge. Now we're getting a resurgence of the martial arts genre. Like this year, I've already seen 3 new films alone, and got these up and coming actors who have these skill sets. So I'm like, all right, we need more of this at this point now. So I,
I
I
agree. I
would
agree. Yeah.
yeah, and I that one you mentioned about the samba, I got to see that one. That sounds like very interesting. I like watching those type of movies. That's like
I'll
remind me of.
send you. I'll see whether there's any subtitled version because as I understand we only did it in Russian,
Yeah,
but I'll see if I find something. I'll kind of send it to you for you. I mean, I don't think we dubbed it yet, unfortunately, because of the war and all the sanctions. There's
yeah.
nothing really coming over, even though we shot before the war, but no one cares nowadays, of course. But I'm sure there will be a subtitled version I can send you. It's quite nice, actually. It's very nice. It's shot in the style of constructivism, like Bauhaus a little bit, like because it was the whole story takes place in the 30s, so
Yeah.
which was a very interesting time in the Soviet Union. So when they really came up with all this stuff, and there's all this, it's quite it was received quite nicely in Russia, but not like openly warmly because it's quite critical about the regime and about like how people are trying to um, blackmail each other for their own profits and stuff. So it's quite,
Yeah.
but it's really interesting. It's a good story, and it's yeah, it was done by my friend Andrei Bogatyryov, who did like whose biggest hit, where I was lucky to be also part of, it was called Red Ghost. So this I can
Oh yeah,
actually
I've heard. Yeah, I haven't
recommend.
seen it yet, but I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard
Watch
about.
that. There's a Russian. It was sold to 120 countries. So there's an
Yeah,
English version of that
yeah,
somewhere.
there
I'm
is.
sure
Yeah,
you'll find it.
definitely.
Watch that. It's a if you like Tarantino and genre, this is kind of the Russian answer to Tarantino. It's super fun. It's very all my friends in Hollywood were like just like they're just like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? We gotta get him to Hollywood. He's so and everyone thought the movie was about the budget was like minimum 12, 15 million. When we shot it with less than $1 million. So it was really very low budget, but it doesn't look it. That's a good thing. So he's and I did another 2 movies with him afterwards. One of the summer, another one was kind of a western. So it's I love genre. I think so do you. So for me, that is a really an amazing way to express yourself and like how to say it, tell stories and reach people because you
Yeah,
don't have this immediate resistance. Like I don't know what they want from me. I want to figure out what they want, and then I can listen to the story. But when you tell a genre, people know what to expect. So you don't have this initial, I wouldn't call it ignorance, but this initial skepticism about what am I about to watch right now. The moment you present something they believe they know, they're very open and very receptive. And then you can include a small thorn or a small hint or a small idea or a small comment about something you like or do not like about the world of reality. And that's what I like with the way we tell stories or what storytelling can actually do in the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, especially
yeah.
yeah, as an actor, I like the fact that everyone does different like versatile. Everyone's all versatile. A lot of people are typecast as in certain genres, but I like those who are like willing to give another genre a chance or try something different. And you're like one of
Mhm.
the most versatile people, like actors I met. And also there's an actress here, Lynn Shay, who she's more known for horror films, but she's done a whole bunch of other stuff. And she told me herself she's also like she loves telling stories as well. So to hear that, that's what acting is all about. It's like you're the storyteller, you're one of the storytellers, and bringing out the best you can. And hands down, you're one of the greats out there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, for me, it's like I really enjoy that actually, and I also like writing and thinking up stories of my own. I'm a super big fantasy nerd, actually. I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, and I like Game of Thrones as well. But Lord of the Rings is just really like I read all the books, and this is really something I want to see back on screen because what's happening nowadays with fantasy is a little bit too much trying to please the audience instead of like giving them something to cry about, like in a good way. So we'll see. I have some ideas, but it will definitely be genre, and it will definitely have martial arts and fighting, and probably horses and swords in it. So yes, that's basically on the agenda. Yeah.
That's awesome. So are there any new projects that you're working on at the moment that you can talk about?
Which I can talk about. There's one coming up actually. There was a premiere yesterday about in like a pre-premiere called I think the English version will be The Others, The Outliers, or whatever they actually settle on. Because in Russian it's called the Russian name is Inlia, which means like the others or the strangers or the freaks. So it's kind of like a combination of those words. It is a very dark alternative fantasy. It's a bit like X-Men set in the early, like late 30s.
Okay.
Yeah, late 30s, I would say, before World War II starts, and in Soviet times. And there is people with special powers, magic, as you want to say. Everyone has kind of a different power. That's why it's kind of like close to X-Men. But instead of being celebrated or whatever, they're actually hunted down to be used as weapons against enemies of the state. First, they're being tested. So there's one girl who's actually a bit Luba-like, actually come to think of it. And she's basically kind of a medium. She's like the biggest power ever. She can like really make things explode just by looking at them and screaming. It's just, she has these amazing powers. Plus, but she cannot really control this. That's the issue. And then she ends up save her brother from an imminent accident and death in a cable car. She basically moves everyone out of the way, including a whole couple of ton bus, which just lifted from the aircraft like 10, 50 meters. And everyone just in awe, whatever. And then she's getting arrested, her brother as well, and they make tests. And then there's basically a very strange German gentleman who observes the whole thing from afar and then has is starting to collect kids with special abilities himself. And he himself has a special ability. We don't know that about it in the beginning. And then so he basically rescues her from the Soviet Union and they start to send search troops after him. And basically it's a bit like Beauty and the Beast somehow in a very dark sense because he wants to help her to control her power because he himself has power. So it's a very interesting dark fantasy world by my friend Lad Raksha, who now resides and lives in London. He's a young up and coming film director, very ingenious. He took this book or comic, as I understand, and made a whole world out of it. Really, literally a whole world. I came to his room when we were like beginning during the casting process, and he showed me his office, and I was like, how long have you been living here? 5 years or so? Because every part of the wall was covered in some sort of sketches, pictures, paintings. He's also an artist. And he said, no, I've been here for 2 months, maybe. Well, just like this was impressive, really. So,
Wow.
and that's the people I like to work with. And when I feel like someone is like driven by an
Yeah.
idea, and that because I'm the same way, and that was really very very impressive. So it was very easy to immerse myself into that world because it was so full and rich and so thought through already. And sometimes in other projects, I have to do most of this thinking and creating myself internally, which I also love, of course, but it can be a very lonely process, to be honest. While in this case, everything was already there, and I had an open ear and eye and heart every time I had an idea come. I could always come to him and while I was shooting. So so season one is dropping in a couple of days in Russia, as I understand, but I am sure it will be sold abroad because it's such a big budget, like fantasy stuff with like magic and special effects and everything, CGI. So yeah, that's happening. I'm quite excited about that, to be honest.
That's awesome. Well, when the Whirlpool does get nationwide, everyone needs to check that one out. Everyone needs to check out Red Ghost. Everyone needs to check out Mission
Yeah.
Impossible. I think it was Rogue Nation. That's the
Mm.
one you were in. I mean, this guy is an amazing actor. And Wolfgang, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. And I cannot wait to see more of you down the road.
Thank you so much, Albert. And yeah, have a wonderful day.
You too.
I'm going to sleep now, but
All right.
talk to
Well,
you soon.
you take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.